you're
making
jamming.
all your wildest dreams come true on He Said, She Said. COVID, the COVID episode, 1 year later.
Can you believe it that we're still here a year later?
I want everybody to know this is groundbreaking news for everybody. The reason for the lockdown. Are you ready? Mateo is my soon-to-be 10-year-old, my 9-year-old, is the Kevin McAllister of 2020. You know, Kevin
Why?
McAllister was like, I wish you guys would all go away, and they did.
Yeah.
He blew out his birthday candles on March 14th, which is his birthday. And on March 5th, he said, and his wish was that they cancel school for 2 years. On March 15th,
Happy birthday.
President Trump came on the news and said, we are going on a national lockdown.
Oh my gosh.
So there
So
you
it's his
have it.
fault.
If everybody wants to know right now, it's a 10-year-old boy in Youngstown, Ohio. Soon to be 10-year-old boy in Youngstown, Ohio.
Oh
What's
my
up, Deanna?
gosh.
Yeah, it's been a year. It's been a year. And I told you that I wanted to, subject wise, I think it's I don't know, fun's the wrong word, but I mean, like, yeah, like, I think that this was a timely conversation.
Yeah.
When did you first hear about COVID?
So I posted the calendar, but I remember hearing about it in January, February. And the reason is that Jason and I had a trip planned to Germany, Italy, and Paris. And we were leaving March 17th, I think.
There you go.
We were leaving March 17th. And so we heard about it. So leading up the month before, I mean, people were reaching out and calling, you know, family, close friends. Are you going to go? Are you going to cancel? We're like, oh, it's not really a big deal. Like, we don't care. We're going to go. Like, we're good with this. There's no reason to be. I'm talking to my family in Italy. I was talking to my cousins there, and, you know, they kind of shared. They were like, oh, you know, we're fine. This isn't a big deal. And then literally like 5 days later, they're like, we're shut down. I'm like, what? Like, it's not that bad over here. And they were shut down. They're like, you know, there won't be a wait in any of the lines of anything you want to see, you know? So we debated, but as the day we were packing is the day that President Trump came on and said international borders are closed.
We're banning travel.
So yeah, panic mode.
My first inclination, this is going to sound crazy, and this is actually a topic for, I'm getting a little bit of back feed. I don't know. Do you hear anything?
I don't. It sounds good over here, but yeah. If anybody hears anything, let us know so we can adjust it.
So last year on the Super Bowl, I worked myself all into a frenzy in the morning. And this is a topic that we're going to bring onto a future show, and that's conversations about anxiety and things like that. And as an entrepreneur, I worked myself into a frenzy that I had to check myself into the ER. Long story short, no problem, just a panic attack, your common panic attack. And the lady in the ER in the bay next to me, there was an issue, and the lady was saying to the nurses, I don't really want to be here right now. I don't want to be getting that coronavirus. And the nurses were laughing at her on February 6th of 2020. Like, ma'am, that's in China. There's, you know, it is not here, right? And I'm sitting there going, oh, I just want to get out of here and go home and watch the Super Bowl. And so I was like, why would she be so concerned about this coronavirus? And literally within 5.5 weeks, we shut the country down.
Yeah.
So that crazy lady in the ER, she was like, everybody's laughing at her, and look who's laughing now. And then the second wave was when it got to the U.S. in Seattle, Washington, or Redmond, Washington. And there was an outbreak in a nursing home. That was the first kind of recorded episodes and unfortunately deaths. And at the time, I had a client in healthcare that their primary business was in or is in assisted living and healthcare in retirement homes. And I was driving to them one day and I'm going, oh my God, like Wonder what the PR plan looks like for a global pandemic.
Right?
And by that Friday, they had made the decision to send all their office workers to a remote environment. And now I suddenly changed mode, not only to come up with a pandemic PR plan, right? So now I'm dealing with this like I'm not front lines, but like I have people that I'm representing. And then also I had a remote work culture back a decade ago with GE Healthcare. So now my value to them, in addition to marketing, was helping them to develop the remote work culture.
Yeah.
And I just remember following the narrative with a handful of people, and you were in Montana at the time.
Yeah, I was.
So at first it was like, okay, it hit the US. Then it hit Ohio. And then I remember like, oh no, you know what's hitting the fan? It's in Trumbull County. It's in
Yeah.
Mahoney County. COVID is here, right? It's arrived. Did you have any of those like it's getting closer
Well,
moments?
it hit Chicago after it hit Washington, and I was actually speaking at a conference in Chicago during that time. So they weren't disclosing where the one person, which hospital they were at. They were trying to keep things pretty controlled and hush hush during that time, but the chatter in Chicago was there. When I flew back to Montana after that conference, no, not a concern. I mean, it's pretty rural. It took a while to actually get over to Montana, but I could see from Facebook and my feed and my friends and my family how it was impacting Mahoning and Trumbull County, but it
And
didn't hit later.
Montana didn't go into the same lockdown provisions, mask wearing, that kind of some like Ohio did.
Not initially. It did. Ultimately, it did. But when we left to move to Florida at the end of, well, July 1st, we packed everything up and started moving to Florida. At that time, it was not mandated in Montana, but shortly after we left, they did. And of course, we went to Florida, which at that point, there was it was, a
Right.
lot more prevalent in
So
Florida.
what was initially, so early on, we go into the lockdown, March 15th, I immediately got 2 phone calls. Now, like, so first of all, you're worried about obviously health, personal safety. Now, Joanna's birthday is March 13th. So something in my mind was like, it was a Friday. I was like, we're not going to go to dinner. We're canceling the dinner reservations. And she wanted to kill me. But I was like, do we really want to go out? There's this virus that's spreading. Do we really want to kind of go out to a restaurant right now? And that, people are handling our food. I didn't think about the other people there, but I was like, and so we canceled the dinner reservations. By Sunday, lockdown happens. And after the president addresses the nation, literally within the hour, I got 2 phone calls. Hey, Dennis, just want to let you know we're going to exercise our out clause. We don't know, right? Like my business is shutting down. Hey, Dennis, we're going to pull our sponsorship, right now, and then I was like, oh, I go, I poured myself a drink and I was like, okay, is this going to be like, what kind of day is this going to be? Right. Like nobody
Right.
waited till Monday. People immediately within an hour, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh boy, here we go. Buckle up. Like, but
Right.
then that stopped and all my customers stayed still. Now I did take a 65% hit economically in my household, which I'll talk about the relief and the pain a little bit later. But I did end up with a 65% hit economically in my household, in my business in 2020 because of A, an events driven business, and B, a print publication that relies on distribution in all the places that were shut down. And so and what I'd like to talk about later, if you remind me, is that's why you got to have multiple revenue streams and the importance behind
Absolutely.
it. But so now March 15th, lockdown. And what was your initial, did you lose any business right away?
No, I actually gained business. And I feel guilty saying that. I do.
You
Like, there's a
sh-
guilt associated with that.
well, okay, now listen. So, okay, I understand that. You shouldn't.
I know.
I'm sensitive in talking about growth in a year where a lot of people got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, though, like from an agency perspective and consulting perspective, that business for me, because so many people obviously recognize the importance of digital media, that business grew significantly.
Right.
So it wasn't enough to, by no means, to offset what I lost, but in the same note, like it grew. Now,
Yeah.
personally wise, like where was your head early on with like, are we all die?
Early on, I didn't take it seriously at all. I didn't take it seriously for a while. I wasn't the person that was staying in. I still lived my life. I still went about my business. I understood that it was real, and I understood how some businesses were being impacted because of it, because of the shutdown, because of the changes. So I was, shifting with that. But I really didn't change how I did business or what I did anything. Ironically, in March of 2020, I had been working on my program, Ignite Your Digital Marketing. I had been working on that for 6 months and had it scheduled to launch actually in April, but then launched it earlier in March when everything happened, and it got a lot of attention. I actually discounted the price quite a bit and had a couple people hate on me via email. Actually, one person.
We
Because
always
I
hang on to the one
discounted the
person.
price.
We don't hang on to the 10 people that love us. We hang on to the one person that hates us.
Always, every single time I do that. But one person messaged me and said because I was charging for that course, I was taking advantage of people in a bad time. And I'm like, no, I've been working on this for 6 months, and it was going to be a lot more than it is right now. And I'm trying to help as many people by discounting it. Like, my time is still worth something. I mean,
by the way, you still have to eat.
Right. I mean, but everybody else, I had a huge response to that. I had a great response to that, and was able to help a lot of business owners kind of shift and pivot and do things a little bit differently. So in that respect, things had changed. But as far as what did I personally do, nothing really.
So, and I don't want to like rehash the whole Leo story, but we had gone through our own personal lockdown, social distancing. When Leo had his open heart surgery at 6 months old, the doctor said that a cold or a flu could have killed him.
Yeah.
Right. Wouldn't have survived. So something in our brains, just like we limited a lot of things you do now, like, right.
Absolutely.
We limited, and he's fine. He's fixed. So like this felt like that a little bit all over again. Mm-hmm. Obviously more extreme because the kids were going to be home from school. And so, first of all, my house turned into like the jailhouse scene in Goodfellas. I don't know if you remember do you remember the scene in Goodfellas?
I'm trying to remember what happened.
So I
should know this. I've seen it a million times.
So what my point is that in Goodfellas, there's a scene, and if you give me control, I think I can share my screen.
You should have control.
Okay. I'm going to do that here in just 1 second. My internet's loading. All right. So this is basically my house during quarantine.
Come on.
Where is it?
Come on. We want to see it.
Is it on?
Suspense.
Oh, this is killing our vibe, huh?
It totally is killing the vibe. So here we go.
Are you seeing you?
I see both of us. Here we go.
You seeing it?
Yeah.
Well, prison dinner was always a big thing. We had a pasta course, and then we had a meat or a fish. Paulie did the prep work. He was doing a year for contempt, and he had this wonderful system for doing the garlic. He used a razor.
I can't hear it if we're supposed to hear it. I don't get it. Why is that your vibe?
It's not playing the sound, but look up the
No,
video.
we can't hear the sound. All right, back to us. I'm removing that.
So they're talking about dinner in the joint was this huge ordeal, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
else to do except cook. So every day during quarantine, I'm literally like, I'd go to Sam's Club and I talked to my sister and she's like, I'm at Sam's Club right now. It's like 3:00 in the afternoon. Nobody's here, right? Get here now. And I'm like, so I'm literally going into Sam's Club and I'm stocking up for like a month.
Yeah.
Family of 6. So my
Yeah.
shopping trips were amazing. But I was also like, we're going to be on lockdown. We're eating good. Like, what else is there to do? So copious amounts of wine consumed from March 15th until about May 2nd. Epic dinners every night. I'd start cooking around 4 or 5. It was family around the dinner for 7-course meals every. It got to the point where it was disgusting. Like, I mean, I love to cook as a hobby, and I am the camp chef. So like every meal was like this amazing epic meal that we would sit down and we would cook as a family. So it was, and I've talked to a lot of people that were like, everything was nice for a little while. Like we didn't run from activity to activity to activity with
The
our
world
kids.
stopped.
We didn't have to go. We were just a family. Like,
Oh my
right?
gosh. It was not, and I needed that stop. I needed that pause and just to kind of like get my bearings straight, right? Like, yeah, I think it was awesome. That part of it was awesome.
Yeah. So we ate and we drank. I rewatched literally all 9 or 12 seasons of Entourage 3 times.
Oh my
I could have
god.
been so much more productive. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like
You know what?
people learned how to speak foreign languages. My kids,
but I think everybody got a pass of laziness during that time.
Self-improvement. Only thing that I did is I ended up walking about 15,000 steps a day because I had to go walk. One day my oldest and I went for a walk, hour and a half walk. He unloaded for 90 minutes.
Wow.
Like I didn't say one word. Right? He was obviously locked up with his brothers and sisters, and he needed to get some shit off his chest. Like,
yeah.
It was like, but were you worried about the death and destruction before we all kind of knew like what we know now?
No. I really wasn't. I really took it very lightly in the beginning. I still have my questions. I absolutely see that how many people are impacted by it. But no, I didn't see it lasting this long.
Early on, I was guilty of a couple things. So our house is on the woods, and people rediscovered nature.
Yeah.
Right. Our woods are usually empty. There's hiking trails. It's like it's all our own personal space, and that suddenly became more and more frequented. And I remember going out for a hike with the family, which we normally would do, and we don't see anyone. And now there's people everywhere, and they're right up on top of us. And I remember yelling at people like, "Hey, like, right, like you're way too close."
Yeah.
I remember seeing kids in packs riding bikes by our house, and like taking pictures of them and being mad that they were hanging out in groups. And then and then that thought process shifted early May to like where we started to recognize in our own house, like, okay, we're going to manage this like the Leo situation. Like we're going to be cautious, but we're not going to stop living our lives. We're going to wash our hands like you always should. And we're going to do things, but like, so May 20th is kind of like the date where they lifted things, but like May 1st or 2nd, I remember sending my kids down to my neighbors that play baseball at YSU and saying, Braden, is it okay if they come to your batting cage? And he's like, yeah, we send them down. Like, why are you even asking? Right. Because we're asking questions that we never had to deal with.
Right.
And so at that point, we're like, okay, we're coming back outside. But I can remember being mad for a little while of like, how could people be so selfish? But then when you think about the grandiose plan of March 15th to May 20th in Ohio, the plan was this: everybody stay home. That was the plan, right? And you're like, and then you start to a reasonably smart
Flatten
person.
the curve.
Yeah, like a smart person is like, okay, our plan, like how long am I going to stay home for? How long can I possibly stay home for? Like, how reasonable is this expectation? And not a selfish freedom American thing, but like, hey, stay home. That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how healthy is that?
Well,
Right? And
not
I mean, I know we talk mainly about business and that, and I mean, mainly business, right, on here in marketing, but I can't help thinking of all these COVID babies, all these babies that are born during COVID that are
they
so limited on socialization because they're not permitted. I mean, you
they
don't want to bring them around. So how's that going to impact
so first of all,
these
thank God
children?
I took care of that problem before COVID. So with 4 kids, that's enough, right? Tapping out there, right?
Well, no, but I'm saying, but there are a lot
But
of children right
my
now that are born during this time and they can't
well,
socialize normally.
I have a 3-year-old, and I don't ever want him. He's at that age, right? 3 years old, where he can become accustomed to the world very quickly, and I don't want that world to be with a mask on at an age
Mhm.
where it's so important from a developmental perspective,
Right.
right? Um, the kids walking out of a store and they still have their masks on in the parking lot, and I'm like, take your mask down. Like, we are outside, like, right? And so my nephew and his wife, think about being a first time parent.
Well, that's
And,
what I'm talking
and
about. Like
so,
these newborns, not just
so
these people, these children that are born
you remember
within
taking
this past
who's
COVID
older?
year.
Is PD older? Who's
Petey's
the older?
older.
All right. Remember when they're like, take PD home? You're like, no, we'll stay an extra couple of days, right? like we had
He
Mikey.
might be listening. He tunes in every once in a while to this. I don't know if he is or not, but
3 days in having that first kid, they're like, okay, you're ready to go home. You're like, whoa, like,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to go anywhere. Like, can we stay? So, like, my nephew and his wife had their first baby in April. She'll be 1 year, one on, I think, April 11th. And so not only like being pregnant through COVID, not knowing what the world's going, like what the outcomes are, then you're going to have a baby, and the family was like in the parking lot waving up to the window, and this is how, it was 30 days in before
Yeah.
I think and there's some people out there that had a newborn and they still haven't seen the grandparents, still haven't seen the baby, right?
That's
Held the
what I'm
baby.
talking about. Yeah.
My kids were born and in the hands of every family member. I mean, like, like within the hour, and it
Yeah.
was a month before, the grandparents and great grandparents got to, hold the baby, right? It's like, these are things that I think that, when you look back on this and look back on it now, a year, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, it's like, wow, like this is,
Yeah.
this is where we were at.
That's my biggest concern. And of course I'm not having children anytime soon, right? But my niece just
Yes.
had a little boy, and my niece and nephew, they also have 2 children, but they, the younger one has been more isolated than the older, because the older one, of course, was born before COVID. But I think about these children that were born during this past year, right? And it's not even the parents, but like you would have play dates and you would hang out with your friends who had young children too, and they would learn how to socialize. Like you said earlier, there's so much that children
Well,
learn developmentally just during that time from socialization and all those skills. So
you
I'm
know,
just curious, like, what does that mean for the future? Like, and anybody who is like working on their degree in this arena, I think you are going to be so busy in 5 to 6 years,
yeah,
because I think there's going to be a lot of skills that haven't been taught just because they aren't allowed to, not because the parents dropped the ball. It's just, it is what it is right now.
there will be a lot of scar tissue that frankly kind of we'll hit on another episode, but when
Yeah, I know. I'm taking you down a family route. This is
no
like
no
a
no
business
no
route.
and I do want to talk about it eventually, because I think it'll help a lot of entrepreneurs. I think it's an important topic, is that the post-traumatic stress disorder that I dealt with post Leo surgery didn't necessarily bubble up until months after. Like, he had his surgery in April. We went through 6 months of like, holy shit, like nobody better get sick in this house and give this little baby an
Yeah.
illness. So that stuff didn't hit me and then you compile work and you compile life, and you have 3 other kids that are still going to have their needs. That stuff didn't hit me till 3, 4, 5 months down the road.
Yeah.
And so as we kind of, with vaccinations, and Texas and Mississippi opened up the other day, and people that have had people that either were sick, deathly sick, or unfortunately lost somebody in the process, may not understand the mental aspect of this month, 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road. And the other thing that we really missed on is that not every house looks like my house. And what I mean by that is my kids have, they have it pretty darn good. I mean, they got a roof over their head. They're always clothed. They got food in their belly. Yeah, I yell at them from time to time, but at the when I have to discipline them, but they got it really good. They got a nice outside. They got woods behind their house. People don't have that support. Like we sent kids home to be with abused parents and lock them up with abused parents. It's sickening to think.
It is.
My nephew, one of my cousins, is he's the treasurer at a local school. And he's like, hey, we have lunches left over. Do you want me to drop some off at your house? I was like, oh, that's such a nice gesture. I mean, we got plenty of food. Like, I mean, and he's like, I'll take you 6 bag lunches. And I was like, oh, that's a nice thing to do. Drop them off. I'm like, what? Wait a minute, though. Why? Like, why do you have bag lunches? He's like, we still have to continue to feed breakfast and lunch to the school population that's on the free breakfast and lunch programs, even though they're at home, because they're in a situation where they don't have food at home.
Oh gosh, that's heartbreaking.
It's crazy to think.
It's heartbreaking. Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? Like, and so.
Oh, you're depressing me. I'm so sad right now. It's like,
right,
that sucks.
Right, or
it's a reality.
You've got spousal abuse problems, things like that, drug addictions, and these are all things that I think that obviously make it challenging. And so, the upside is that I think as what we tried to bring to our kids in this situation. So we had baseball in the spring, and what was it? So March 15th, we had an indoor practice. We had our indoor practice the week before. March 15th, actually, it was a warm March, so we had a few outdoor practices too. We were supposed to have practice. And somebody for the New York Yankees tested positive in their spring training. And I was like, maybe we shouldn't go to baseball, right? Maybe we shouldn't go to baseball tonight. And so from my kids' perspective, we ended up, working out in the driveway, getting exercise. But the thing that I wanted them to realize is, like, life lesson here is this. And Michael's baseball coach had talked to them about it too. He's a cancer survivor. He was on his way to potentially play Major League Baseball, at least a minor league contract, and he woke up one day with cancer.
Oh wow!
And he talked to the kids about how they're in a situation now where they just wake up one day and life has changed. So don't ever take for granted, like, this is a given that you get to go do this. Because my kids will, like, they play a lot of baseball. They play Little League in the community, and they play travel ball on the weekend. And, sometimes there's 1 or 2 days off, and some people are like, that's a lot. And you have to manage burnout. But in the same note, you have, it's like, you don't feel like going today? Okay. Well, you remember when you couldn't do anything at all?
Yeah.
Remember what that felt like, right? You have to find that moment, because you can't tell somebody, like, appreciate it while it's here because it's going to be gone with you. It's like, yeah, okay, like, it's gonna be gone.
Right. You don't get it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm reading this comment, and again, it breaks my heart. Children's Services has had a huge decrease in reports of abuse, neglect over the past year. COVID didn't cure child abuse. The lockdowns just removed the advocates from these kids who need them.
Right. So, like, your school teacher, your counselor, your person that's, you're out and about, there's nothing to report because you like you didn't see that.
Yeah.
Drive-by birthdays. Did you do any drive-by birthdays? The
So
car parades?
we did not do a drive-by birthday, but so my niece, of course, got married and had her baby shower during this time, and we were just going to have a small baby shower at her mom's house, at my brother's house, right? And then the governor said that you couldn't have 10 people in the house or something. And it wasn't a huge party, but
It's almost enough that my own family, my own house can't be together.
yeah, it was something. So they had to shift gears and they did a drive-by baby shower, I think like the day before. I mean, it ended up being very nice, right? But you still, yeah, these are these moments that like you kind of wait for, right?
Well, we got 4 birthdays in my house over the next month. Joanna and Mateo are back-to-back days, March 13th and 14th. My wife and my soon-to-be 10-year-old. My April 16th and 17th, it will be my oldest turns 12 and my daughter turns 10. I'm sorry, she turns 8. So I got 4 birthdays. Those were all impacted by COVID last year, and we had to do Zoom birthdays. And probably, if I find the video, because I know that it exists, probably one of the saddest moments, like, in our house compared to these other problems that people have. I get it; it's all relative, but like Michael on his 11th birthday on a Zoom with our family, right? Everybody's like, "Hey, happy birthday!" He's playing the piano and he's playing like a sad song he was playing like, I think, Jurassic Park, which is like a slow melodic, right? And it's like kind of like, and it's like I was like almost in tears. Like, this is how this kid has got to celebrate his 11th birthday party. And you hear this music playing on the piano, and everybody's like, "Yay, Zoom, yay!" Right? And I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah.
So and by the way, anything COVID on Facebook tends to get shut down. So who knows if this will even like get taken down.
Who knows what the reach will be, right?
What do you feel comfortable answering the question? Like, what do you feel like the government's role in all of this has been? Like, do you feel like the lockdowns and the mandates and all that is something that should have been under governmental control? Or is this something that should be left up to a responsible citizen to say, like in Texas, for instance, they're 100% open as of next week, and they're removing the mask mandate. You now, as a citizen, have the right to say, I want to stay home, or if I go to the store, I want to wear a mask. And you also have the right to say, I don't want to wear a mask.
Right.
Where do you sit in that conversation?
So I think that it's been a total shit show, for lack of a better term, right? And I try to understand what the government's doing. They just don't know. But instead of saying we don't know, they're throwing crap at the wall to see what sticks, right? And it's obviously it hasn't worked. So in my opinion, I'm in Florida, and we aren't mandated to wear masks. Now, in the big box stores, they require it. So you are encouraged to follow their rules. I think each person should make up their own mind, right? And right now, I'm not concerned. I don't wear a mask. I will wear it if I'm going to the store. Right. Now, if I had someone in my home that was at a higher risk, if my parents were staying with me, or if I had, a child who had heart surgery, right? I probably would be much more conservative on that. I probably would wear my mask a lot more. But, I really haven't. I'm cautious of where I go. I mean, I'm not going to go somewhere where it's super crowded, but I have flown back and forth. I don't, 5 times, 5 times. I mean, I don't know, in this past year, and the airports have been fine. We went to Disney. We went to Epcot. I'm living my life, and companies are being proactive of doing the best job that they possibly can do. And if you don't want to be in that environment, don't be in that environment. Stay home. I'm not concerned. Now, if I get that, it's on me. I'm not getting the vaccination either. If you want to go there, not buying it.
I will tell you that early on, I had the luxury of having several clients in healthcare or revolving around the healthcare industry. And what they were, and a neighbor. A neighbor was ordering up tractor trailers, ice tractor trailers, right? So they put the staging area out, the triage outside the hospital. This is what he does, and he was ordering up boxes in tractor trailers because of the body count that they were anticipating. Right? I knew this back in literally
Right.
2 weeks in. I had other clients that were manufacturing things for the healthcare industry for makeshift closets that were going to become certain
Right.
deathbeds. And I had a physician as well. I knew stuff, right? And I was like, oh, I wish I could unlearn this, and I wish I could unsee this story, what they're preparing for. That said, once we got through, and I adamantly feel that we should be left to make our decisions as to how we want to govern ourselves and govern our way through this. And at the end of the day, if the government is going to mandate that a hairdresser cannot make a living, and I don't know any small business owner that wants to be codependent upon a welfare state. In the same note, that government should have made the provisions to keep that income level exactly where it was until you decide that you're going to let somebody operate their business. But it should be left up to me, right? I started this with, I took a 65% hit in 2020. I could have done Do Yo Live to a certain extent, my marketing conference. I could have did something, but it didn't feel fun having to wear a mask. I also didn't want to put people, I didn't feel I could keep people safe. So I was sensitive to that.
Right.
Right.
It would be hard.
And then there's the COVID tax. So the COVID tax is this, that nobody wants to pay. So the COVID tax is, okay, my restaurant can only operate at 50% capacity. So as a business owner, I'm going to charge 50% more. Or if you're coming to a conference that costs $150 and now I have to ensure your COVID safety with extra lotions and all this and less people, are you willing to pay the additional $50 or $75 per person that it's going to take to keep you safe?
Right.
So people bitch about a $5 beer in Youngstown, Ohio. So now you're going to charge them $10, right? They'll lose their mind. So yeah. I do feel that, and I think that the other side of that is well, obviously people aren't responsible enough. That's why we have to have a law. There was a point in time. Do you remember when the seatbelt law came out?
Vaguely, yeah. I remember not wearing a seatbelt. We never had a seatbelt on. I remember. I remember having to wear a seatbelt, and it was so hard to remember because the habit was just to jump in the car.
They actually built cars. Remember when they built the car with the thing that would automatically go up across?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I had one of those.
But do you remember the argument that initially was like, who are they to tell me that I have to wear a seatbelt?
Yeah.
The government, right?
I remember. It's
my freedom. And we didn't have the internet, so these were conversations that were happening around your dinner table on Sundays. Who are they to tell us what we have to do, right? Because the government realizes that there's probably a lot of dumb people out there that aren't responsible, so they feel like they have to step in and govern. But I feel in this situation, our government has run wild under the COVID disguise. And the governors have absolutely...
It's just run wild. Let's talk Mr. Potato Head, right? Okay. Dr. Seuss, but we'll stick with COVID, but everybody is just crazy right now.
So they mandate, right? No checks and balances.
Yes.
At all. And there got to be a point in time where there's got to be a vote of some constituents that basically say, okay, every day you wake up and you're like, it's COVID, so we're going to mandate. And the inconsistencies for small business owners is why the situation is like, one day it's like you say things sticking on a wall. Like, well, one day we're going to do this. One day you're going to do this. One day you're going to do this. And like as a small business owner, you're like, I'm just trying to survive.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's pretty much what a lot of these small businesses are doing. Everybody's in survival mode. And, there, even if you have a 9 to 5, that has even been shaken and rattled for a lot of people, that are going to work. It's like, is the company I work for going to still be there after this? And of course, some careers are probably a little bit more secure than others. But I think for the first time in a long time, people don't have the confidence in their job, whatever that job may be, right? We're a little nervous because of all the uncertainty and how it's shifting. And you can wake up tomorrow and they can throw out another.
What's interesting is that I've not been concerned with like I really have. My parents, and we've seen them. Like I just saw them over the weekend. Like my dad got his first shot, but there have been times where we're coming up on championships for basketball, or there's a big tournament this weekend, right? And so we're out, we're doing our thing. I've been out to eat 3 times in COVID, but that's not, I mean, to say it's COVID's fault, it's not really true because we got 4 kids. We don't go out that often anyway, right? But like, so when we're coming up on like, okay, we got a big baseball tournament. I'm like, this is not the time to get COVID right now, right? Like,
yeah,
I never thought about that. I had to get tested.
Yeah, me too.
Which was stupid.
Why did you have to get tested? Were you sick?
Since November 5th, I can tell you more times than not by Wednesday, I was with somebody on the weekend that says, I get a text message. Just want to let you know, tested positive for COVID. Like this happens like I could tell you it happened 2 to 3 weeks in November, 2 to 3 weeks in December. It's died down now, but like it was literally like, just want to let you know, test positive for COVID.
Yeah.
So
I
have a customer of mine that basically wouldn't let me come back in until I tested negative.
I got you. Now, did they do the one way up the nose?
Well, with this big nose, it's hard to miss. They tickle your brain. They're scratching your brain, right?
Oh.
Like, are you trying to get a culture of my nose or my brain, right?
Oh, were you scared?
No, but I broke my nose 3 times, so I got a lot of scar tissue, so it's a little sensitive in there. And then they do the other side. So the one side's the rapid test.
I just had one side.
All right. So they rapid test you on one side. This is a total Youngstown story. So I find out that I have to get a COVID test to go back into a customer. I call my good friend up, Justine, who introduced Joanna and I on a blind date 16 years ago. Justine and I grew up together. So she's my ace in the hole. I call Justine. I'm like, Just, I hear you. I actually text her. I said, I hear you could hook me up with a COVID test.
Shut up.
I shit you not. She's like, I'll call you back at the end of the day. She texts me back. Hey, I got you on the schedule like Monday. Like this line's like 3 weeks long, right? She's like, I got you on Monday. I'm like,
oh boy.
Is
like, her boss watching or her friends?
She's like, be the first one there. So I go, I'm in line. It's a great place to catch COVID too, because everybody's getting the test and the line's out the door of people getting COVID tests.
They're standing?
Yeah, like the waiting room, right? And I'm like,
mine was a drive-through.
I'm like, if I don't have it now, I'm going to get, like, this is a great place to get it because everybody's coming to get tested.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
I get this one. The guy comes back in 15 minutes. Hey, good news. You tested negative. I'm like, great. He's like, but you got to wait for the lab results to come back in 3 to 5 days. Leave your phone on. So now it's like an STD test, right? I'm like,
how many of those have you had? I don't know. What is that like?
Hey, let's just say that
I think people might be a little red right now.
People at our age live through the height of the HIV scare. So let's just not, there's less people that would admit it and more people that got tested in the 90s. So I'm walking out in the parking lot, and a buddy of mine's walking in. And I'm like, yo, like, what's up, man? He's like, I got to get tested. I was like, oh. He's like, my wife tested negative here last week off the rapid test, but she got the lab results back, and she's tested positive, asymptomatic. Not really ill, but I go, I was just doing the COVID dance in the parking lot. Now you just crapped on my COVID parade, and now I got to wait on my test results. Thanks, Chris. Like, I'll see you later. So I go home and hung out at home for a couple of days. But like, just the pure insanity of going to get tested and that wait period was stupid. And the reason is that every day you're coming in contact and communication with other people. Your kids are going out to school, right? There's no way that, like, one person to one person, Kevin Bacon, somebody that you've come in contact with, like, you went to Disney.
Yeah.
They do the temperature scan.
Yeah.
You wear the mask. You walk in the park, there's a ton of people there.
Yeah.
Guess what? Like, even Disney at 50% and all the people there's people there that had COVID.
Probably.
That's my point of the insanity of getting
tested.
They
probably were carrying it. I mean, but that's the chance I'm prepared to take.
So how diversified are you revenue stream wise within your business?
Not as diversified as I want to be, but I'm on the right path. The right path. And I've been, pardon me?
Multiple revenue streams?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I've got the agency side, I've got the courses, I've got rental property. Like, it's not just, there's definitely, you have to have multiple streams of income, you just need to, because you don't know at any given time one thing can stop. And I've been through that where one thing has stopped, and then you're like, now what?
Oh shit.
Yeah. So you really need to, whether it is creating a branch, another arm off your business, or doing something totally different where you're making some additional income, but you need to have multiple streams of revenue.
Unfortunately, I kind of go to extremes with having 3 businesses, right? I mean, you could offer even just products within your existing business that diversify your revenue stream. But in any case, like, 2020 is the ultimate element of number one, marketing. Your business plan, your marketing plan is way overrated. And the reason I say that is because everybody that woke up with a plan in 2020, right, just, it went out the window.
Yeah.
Because of these dramatic events that took place. But because of the fact that, it's a pain in the ass. It's exhausting to have an agency like I do, like you do, have a conference that takes up a lot of time and energy but generates revenue, and then have a print publication that's independent of these other two, but a lot of times I get that feeds each other. 2 of that died, right? And thank God, like, I have an agency business that, that obviously I say saved my butt, but really at the end of the day, like, kept us afloat, made us even, did pretty well, and helped me to refocus even coming into 21 to say, like, you know what, like, I'm all in on that business. Like, we're good at it and we could do it, and we'll bring those other things back. But if you're a one-trick pony, you learned real quick that life got really challenging for you. It's hard starting out. I feel for anybody that was starting in COVID, because it's hard to diversify early on.
I agree. I don't think you should diversify early on. I think you should do one thing, do it well, learn, and then add another stream. If you try to do too many things in the beginning all at once, what you're doing is going to be absolutely watered down, and you're not going to do any of it well. So, I think it's really important to just focus on one thing at a time, get that in a solid place, and then add another arm or add something else to it. Unless you have somebody else to help you manage everything, then that's totally different. But if it's you independently, one person trying to create multiple streams of revenue, just pace it. You've got to be a little patient, and you've got to just, keep pushing through. Have it as a game plan, a goal. If you haven't done that at this point, I do believe, especially for entrepreneurs, I mean, you should have some sort of retirement set up, but we are the least likely ones to actually do that, because we are not contributing to a 401k or anything like that. So I think it's so
there's
important.
No match.
No, there's no match. So I think it's really important to get in touch with a financial advisor or somebody to help get you on the right path and save. I know so many entrepreneurs that don't put anything away because, I mean, that's just kind of entrepreneurship, right? But you have to save. You've got to put something away, and then creating those multiple streams, on your own, just one step at a time, and do it.
Yeah, I mean, any given time over the past, 4 years, 5 years. So it was launch agency. 3 years after that, launch a conference. A year and a half, 2 years, launch a print publication. So that is kind of like the serial entrepreneurship, launch these businesses. And then offered various services within the agency that I could obviously pick up clients and whatnot. That's kind of like the trajectory of that. And over the course of that time, 2/3 of that business was always producing revenue.
Right.
So cyclically, there would be a time of year where you're not generating sales. It's time to produce the product, or the event's not going on, but there's always 2/3 of the businesses, right? And if you could, like, there's a guy locally that does mosquito spray, and early on, like, he came to my house and he was gonna spray my yard, and if I put a sign in, and everyone in the guy is gonna give me a free spray.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, this might be your lucky day and my lucky day. So I selfied me with the mosquito guy and his truck, put it on Instagram, and there's signs all the way down my street within like a month. And he gave me 2 free sprays.
Nice.
And he discounted me. But the other day when he called me, I'm like, hey, whatever happened to all those free sprays? Like, he's like, I gave you 2. And I was like, well, feels like you got the whole street.
Oh, Dennis, no, you didn't.
And I said, I did put you in my email list as well. I was like, but I was like, look, but here's my point. He's a one-trick pony, unfortunately. He has a mosquito spray, and that's all he does, right? Come winter, there's no mosquitoes. Like, you need to figure out what the other is that you need to offer, more so just mosquito spray.
Right. And and that's, I don't know what my dog is barking at, but that's what happens when you go live. Biggie, stop. I have no idea what he's barking at. I'm sorry. But come here. Sorry. All right. But I mean, that's just it. If you are if you are a business, it's time to really start thinking of how you can create those multiple streams of income, right? So if you are a storefront, let's just say that you are, let's say you're a beauty salon, right? They closed down. So of course your product is actually doing people's hair, right? You've got people physically coming in and you're cutting it, coloring it, whatever you're doing. Think of other things you can do, right? Maybe create those little kits. I know some people during that time where they weren't able to actually have people come in to do their hair, they were selling different colors and different things that they can do at home, increasing their product line, right? That's one stream. But think of like even how-to videos, or books, courses, things like that you can actually do. Maybe you are teaching other hairstylists some different techniques and things that they can do during that time and doing it video and adding them where they can join your course. The point is, even though you may feel like you're a one-trick pony and you only have one service or product to offer, think outside of the box, get a little creative, and think of other ways that you can actually monetize what you're already doing. And I think that's really important.
I thought about starting a booze delivery service during COVID.
A what?
I'm not joking right now, by the way. Like
A booze delivery?
Yeah, booze delivery. Like,
oh, I wanted, please, you're talking to someone who was a single mom with 2 boys in her home for 18 years. You don't think I thought of that? I would have, Creekside Liquor was right down the street. I would beg them and offer them anything if they could deliver. Like, please bring me a bottle of wine. Yeah. I can't leave because my boys are napping, but mama needs a bottle of wine.
Yeah. And then, so
I would have bought.
And then it's funny because I started my business career cutting grass at 12 or 13 years old. And I had a conversation about a month into COVID lockdown. And I was like, if I have to, I'll get back in the grass cutting game. Mm-hmm. My brother-in-law, my sister's husband's like, you're going to do what? Now, dude, look, I got to hustle, man. Like I may have to start mowing grass. Well, yeah. What's funny about that?
I mean, they make some good money.
So here's the funny
lawn care people. I mean, they get paid well. So I think nothing wrong with that.
here's where I'm at. So I think this is a good topic of conversation for an upcoming show. I actually pass this idea along to somebody else as well. Youth entrepreneurship. How do you develop youth? How do you develop entrepreneurs? Even though that you and I think agree the fact that a lot of entrepreneurship is nature, not nurture. Giving a kid a taste of entrepreneurship. My kid, so he got stock for a birthday last year. He wanted to get Activision, which is they produce Call of Duty, which is actually my nephew and him sat down. They before Robinhood shit the bed, like he has stock on Robinhood and starting to understand the basics of financial literacy, right? Yeah. We don't teach this. He's like, he goes over to my nephew's after school and learns about the stock market. He's like, why don't they teach us this in school? I'm like, I don't know. Like, why? Like they should, but they don't. He's like, I'd be so interested in learning that. So he's like, I want to have this much money in the bank by the time I'm, 30 or 20 or whatever. And I'm like, that's a really mature attitude. How are we going to get there? And I was like, I'll help you finance, like, you want to start a grass cutting business this summer? Like, what do you want to do? So I tapped into Becky and I was like, I need some free work. And a good friend of ours at B Squared Graphics, creative design work, marketing work. And I said, I need a free work. And she's like, oh, again, I'll lay the heavy on everybody favor wise. I was like, it's for an 11-year-old, soon to be 12-year-old. He's starting his business. He needs a logo. And I told him, like, you got to start door knocking now because we're coming up on grass cutting season and you need 3 or 4, like you get 3 or 4 lawns at your age at 12. I was like, you're flush, man. Like you're making money. You start investing. I've got a MeWe account now for you. I'm sorry, not Webull, right? What the hell is it? Webull, because I'm moving off of Eventbrite or Robinhood because of all their issues. And I said, we'll start taking some of your hard-earned money weekly, and we'll start investing, in the stock market and get you going. And so he's all in. So I'm currently lawnmower shopping.
Nice.
I think he's going to add power washing, so he's got another revenue stream.
Nice.
And we're going to start that.
Very cool. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I really don't. I mean, I think that's great. And I think more parents need to do things like that with their kids. And it's not even about entrepreneurship. It's about responsibility.
It's about earning.
It is. And I mean, there's so much pride. There's so much that goes into that when you teach them how to be a responsible adult. I always say, like, people will comment now like, "Oh, I can't believe you would do that," with your kids, your boys were small. And I'm like, I wasn't raising boys. I was raising men and husbands. Like, I would never looked at them. I know they were young, right? But I always took it a step further, kind of like what you do. And maybe that's just being an entrepreneur. But in my mind, I wasn't raising them to just be another little kid. I was looking into their future. Like, what is this going to teach them when they're adults? How are they going to support a wife and a family? Which is
or
a whole other
themselves. But
themselves,
here's
right?
the funny thing. So a neighbor that you know very well. We're having a glass of wine on his front porch, and we're talking about this. And he's like, "Look, he's like, if you can instill that work ethic, he's like, that takes care of all the other problems in life." He goes, "Think about it." He goes, "Everybody's got all these problems, right?" He's like, "You got too much time on your hand. You don't have this. You're mentally this." He's like, "If you got to work, that takes up a lot. Like it cures a lot of problems."
Yeah.
And yeah, so we've got that going. I think that it's last year my father-in-law would come and get the boys. And now this is the thing, right? So we have these little superstars walking around at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. They need to rest on days that they have little league baseball games. Now, the only thing I wasn't allowed to do
Yeah, no, I know.
what I wasn't allowed to do on little league baseball game days was go swimming. My dad was very strict. He's like, "You're going to play like crap if you go swimming, but you could do work around it." So while all these other kids are sitting in the air condition all day long and they got a little league game, they need to rest up for that 6 inning, hour and a half long game, right? My father-in-law is picking my kids up and going and cutting down trees. Or one day the neighbor who has kids the same age texts me like, "Your kids are out shoveling landscaping stone at your father-in-law's right now."
Oh my gosh.
Right? They're shoveling landscaping stone. And he's like, "Don't they have a game or something?" And I was like, they got home about 3, 4 o'clock. They got showered up. They ate. They rested for about a half hour, and they went and played their baseball games. There aren't many other kids that are at that ball field that were shoveling, have ever even had a shovel in their hands, let alone work that day for like 4 hours shoveling stone.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
we
that's
got to
a
the
whole other topic.
yeah.
I mean, we were at Disney and I am like, you just see some of the ways some of the children were behaving and the way the parents were kind of taking it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, right? Like, I know. It was
I'm buying. I actually watched the video that we did not too long ago where I talked about it's my job, my kid's job to keep an eye on me when we go places because I know where we're going.
yeah.
When we went to Disney, and I do this at the grocery store, the kid, like I have enough money to buy a candy bar and gum. Right.
Right.
But I'm like, you got to decide which one do you want? And they're like, why can't we just get both? I'm like, because life is about making good decisions. And you can't make good decisions if you're not put in a position to make little decisions on a daily basis to make those big decisions. So,
yeah.
Which one do you want? Do you want the gum or do you want the candy bar? And they're like, "Oh, why do you always do this to us?" You know what I mean?
They can go in it together and they can, one get the gum, one get the candy bar and share it.
Sometimes you're like, are they that bright? And when we were at Disney, and like everybody's going to do the souvenir thing, and like, and my kids even have they're, I think highly of them, but they're good kids, but like, I think there was some belly aching at the end of the evening. There was a little belly aching from one of them, like, not getting this. And I'm like, and I grabbed them like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, right? And I'm like, you little shit. Like, no, you're not acting like this, right?
Yeah.
You just like, I want, and so, and my wife spoils them. My wife spoils them the next day, but anyway, good chat.
Yes, definitely
good chat.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
you for everybody who was tuning in and watching. It was fun. I love this one. I'm just going to show this one more time, right? Loving this video and your candor.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
drop on
Thank
by.
you.
Thank you, Deanna, for obviously scheduling these. And
Oh, it's
we'll,
fun.
we'll
I'm
be
having
back.
fun with it.
We'll be back next week with
A new topic that we will decide on the night before. Or the morning of, because that's how we roll.
You got it. If something comes up, we're willing to talk about it. Maybe it's
Mr. Potato Head
ooh,
and Dr. Seuss.
but they brought it back.
Oh, did they? I haven't even seen. I think we would agree on that. We don't really. We haven't disagreed on anything. We need
The
something.
potato head.
Huh?
The potato, like so. Couldn't they just have introduced a gender neutral potato head instead of having to take away a Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head? I'm cool with that. I'm fine with that, right? Like at the end of the day, but I think what happened is, and I don't know this for a fact, they recognize, like we watched Toy Story the other day. Me and Leo and I sat down, we watched Toy Story on Saturday. And I'm like, they got 4 films that are worth $1 billion. If you go to Disney Studios, and actually if you go to Disney, Mr. Potato Head's everywhere on the Toy
Why
Story
do we
land.
even have to? I don't agree with that. And maybe this is our topic, right? Are you offended because I'm a woman? Should I be offended because you're a man? What? I mean,
Well, how do you feel about men being able to go into girls' bathrooms?
I'm not a fan. And no. And I don't like the fact that men, and I don't know what to call it, transgender women. Is that
let's tease this for next week, because I'm going to tell you when I came out of
women's
when
sports.
I got done playing college basketball in 1995, the WNBA was just coming out. And don't think for one second, I didn't think to myself, I think I can make a WNBA squad and put down 100 G's a year is what they're paying people right now. Don't think I didn't think that.
Yeah. Why didn't you?
Let's do it next week.
I think that's going to be a hot conversation.
I'm all about
it's going to be a heated conversation next week. I'm good with it. I'll roll with it. I mean,
I'm all about a gender neutral potato head.
I'm not.
Good. Let's discuss why next week.
Let's argue it. All right. Well, we'll get you next Wednesday at 12 o'clock.
The gender neutral show.
Yeah. The he said, she said.